Hi guys, I'm Hershey, and I'm here to tell you all about how to build a large doghouse like my friends Mary Kate, Zoe, and Jocelyn did for Troop 149 for an organization called Dogs Deserve Better Blue Ridge. So first of all, safety first. You better have all of your safety equipment. Each girl needs their own. So safety glasses, gloves, ear protection, and closed-toe shoes. Then you need the wood and the supplies you need. So you're going to have to go to some sort of a hardware store. So plywood, pressure treated 2x6s, those are kind of board things. Pressure treated 2x4s, those are also board things, but they're a little smaller. 2-inch screws, 3-inch screws, caulk, insulation, and waterproofing. That just helps keep me dry and warm and cool. So then you need to find all the tools. Hopefully you can borrow them from somebody. We found that tool belts helped us keep all of our screws, pencils, Sharpies together so we wouldn't waste so much time looking for stuff. Then you need to have an extra battery for your drill or screwdriver, Sharpies, an extension cord or 2 or 3, screwdriver, drill, measuring tape, pencils, a big straight edge called a drywall square, it's this big blue thing, saw of a couple different types. We had an electric saw and hand saws and jigsaws, hammers, and then if you have screws that go in the wrong spot and have to come out and don't work right, you're going to need a chisel and vice grips to get them out. And then sawhorses help keep everything at a good level and help you be able to cut your wood. So now you need to set up. So you have to set up a sawhorse where you're going to need it, where you'll be cutting or building. Get your extension cords together, gather all your tools, and a small table makes it so much easier to find your tools. And then you need to haul around all your plywood and lumber. Then make sure everybody has all the right equipment. So the next step is marking and cutting the plywood. So your plywood sheets become roofs and bases, fronts and backs, and then a low side and a high side. So here's some extra information. For each large doghouse, you'll need the following equipment. We built 6, so some of it we didn't need to duplicate. So you'll see some of this will tell you how many you need for 2 doghouses. So then we just tripled the 2 doghouses. All your wood should be non-toxic, arsenic-free, and pressure treated. That means it's safe for doggos and it won't get ruined by the rain because you know doghouses live in the rain. So here's the step. See how we use the big square? That helps us be able to measure and mark your wood. Sharpies too. So here we have some of our measurements, and you'll see how you have to measure everything out. So you measure twice, cut once. Here's some more measurement, and then what some of the wood looks like once you've cut it apart. You'll see that we have a base and a roof right there. Here you have what it looks like with the low side and high side. So for this, you're going to have to make a couple different marks at different levels and then connect the dots. Connecting the dots is a good skill here. And then you've got some side pieces. So once you have all of your pieces mainly cut out, you're going to need to cut out a door because without a door, the dog can't get in. So you're going to draw horizontal lines and then you're going to use a lid of a 5-gallon bucket to create a half round top to the door. And then you cut that out with a jigsaw. So here's all the measurements, and then you've got the half round, and then that's what gets cut out. Zoe is our jigsaw queen. So the next step is assembling. So you're going to start assembling with the base. So you're going to take the 2x6s, those are kind of these little boards, and you're going to cut off 2 pieces that are 32 inches. These get screwed on the bottom of the plywood base with 2-inch screws. So then you're going to measure 2x4s. Those are a little bit smaller, and those go between the 2x6s. And that just gives it more stability so the floor doesn't sag. So these go in, again, with 2-inch screws. And then they go into, the 2x4s go into the bigger 2x6s using 3-inch screws in the joints. So see, we've got our safety gear on, we're drilling holes, and what we did for a lot of it was we drilled holes first and then we screwed afterwards. So we had some girls drilling, some girls screwing, and they just went around in circles. So then we prepare the base for the sides. So from that, we're going to measure down from the top of the base and put in some temporary screws, and that will hold up the sides while you're screwing it in. That helps tremendously, having something for them to sit on. Then at the end, you have to take them out. So here you have our temporary screws. They're ready to hold on the sides. And then you line up your sides and make sure everything's lines up good before you start screwing. So you've got to make sure all your corners are properly lined up, and then each side gets screwed into the base using 2-inch screws. Some warping happens, and that's normal. As you put in your support sides, it helps. And then when you're completely done getting all of your sides on, you're going to remove your support screws. So here we have some sides going on, and you see Mary here drilling holes. And here's Kate drilling holes. And Zoe. So then we're going to put in the vertical support. So these are the 2x4s that are going to help hold it together. So we're going to hold the 2x4 against the inside and one of the corners and mark it where to cut it. So that way you get it a perfect fit. You're going to have everything marked as you go. So then you're going to cut it and then fasten it in using 2-inch screws, and then you keep going for all the corners. If you have any points poking through, you're going to use a hammer or file to remove them because you don't want anything that's going to scratch the puppies. So here we are cutting vertical supports. And here's what the vertical support looks like as we're cutting it down. So this is the measuring. After the vertical support goes the horizontal support. So for those, we're also going to measure and cut them out to fill the spaces by measuring and then double checking. And we're screwing those into place also with 2-inch screws. This is really important because that's what's going to hold the roof up, and that allows you to have more room to screw in the roof. So here is a completed horizontal support. So you see how all the edges go together and provide more stability for the doghouse. So then you sand. You sand all the edges where the plywood meets until smooth, and the doorway and the inside of the house so nobody gets splintered. Here's some belt sanding going on. The belt sander's fun. And then we're going to put in a door. So the door, we were given some pieces of heavy duty rubber sheeting, and it already had spaces cut into it. And then you attach it using a 16-inch piece of 2x4 on the top of the doorway. We screwed from the inside out just to make sure that the screws didn't stick inside the doghouse and for a stronger bond. So you see we have doghouse, doorway, and then that piece of wood covering it. So then we talked about the roof. We actually made the roof a little bit bigger than the plans called for because we wanted the dogs to have a little bit more shade on the edges. So we used a miter saw or sander to round out the edges of the wood just so the poor puppies didn't like run into a corner. So here we are. We ended up just lopping off the corners quick and then belt sanding them smooth. How many girls can you fit in a doghouse? And then attaching the roof, we screwed the roof onto the horizontal supports using 5 2-inch screws. And it overhangs 4 inches from the high side, and then the rest of it hangs off the low side, and that provides the dog with shade. And then between the right and the left, you just center it completely. So front to back, it's centered. On the high side, it's just 4 inches, and the rest of it comes off the low end. Here we are drilling the roof and screwing it in. And then we applied 100% silicone caulking to the underside of the roof where it meets the plywood side. And then all seams got caulked. We also applied clear waterproof wood sealer to all the outside surfaces and to the bottom. This was clear, so we actually wrote on the dog houses as we finished, so we knew which ones we had done and which ones we hadn't. We also waterproofed the outside bottom towards where it rests on the ground, so that it would provide a little bit more waterproofing for the material because that's what sits on the ground. Well, the insulation and it sits on the ground. We didn't put any on the inside of the doghouse where the dog might end up with some. Here is waterproofing. Here is caulking with Jocelyn. And then we cut insulation to fit between the braces along the base, and the insulation goes towards the ground underneath the doghouse. We also may have spent some time signing the dog houses and writing on them. Insulation is super easy to cut with just a regular saw. And we all signed our names to it. And you want to keep it just a tiny bit bigger than the measurements, and that way it fits in. but you don't want to make it too much bigger because it doesn't actually collapse much at all. But making it just the right size means that it holds itself in. So this is what the doghouse looks like from the front. You have extra plywood on the low side, which I think some puppy is going to be delighted with in the summer. And this is when we delivered them to Dogs Deliver Better Blue Ridge. They have a big storage area. And so we delivered them, and they are ready to be given to families. Here are some fun moments and bloopers. Sitting in the doghouse is the best fun.